Welcome back to Reset and Rise Midlife. I'm your host, Coach Sabrina Woods. And while I'm planning season two, I wanted to connect with you today on a topic that's been sitting on my heart because this is something I see not just in others, but something I had to learn within myself. And it's this: how we read people, how we interpret what's being said, how it's being said, and what's actually being done, and how all of that feels to us. Most of us aren't just responding to a moment, we're responding to a meaning we've attached to it. And when we don't slow down to really look at the full picture, the language, the tone, the actions, our emotional response, we can very easily create a reality that feels real, but it isn't always fully true. So today, I want to walk through this with you, not from a place of judgment, but from awareness. Because once we learn how to read what's actually in front of us, we stop reacting to the story and we start responding to the truth. So let's start with language, because language is the first thing we hear, but not always the truth we experience. Someone says, I got you. I'll call you later. I appreciate you. And on the surface, that sounds good. But here's where the awareness comes in. Language without alignment creates confusion because our mind may accept the words, but our nervous system tracks the patterns. So if someone's words are consistent, but the follow through isn't, your body starts asking questions before your mind catches up. And a lot of us have been conditioned to override that, to say, maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I'm expecting too much, maybe it's not that deep. But awareness asks a different question. It asks, is this consistent or just comforting? Now let's go deeper. Tone. Because tone is where truth starts to show itself. You can say all the right things, but if the tone carries irritation, distance, or disconnect, your body will feel that. You can hear, I'm fine, but your body will feel, I'm not okay. You can hear, I respect you, but feel the tension underneath it. And here's what's important to understand. Your nervous system responds to tone before it processes language. That's why something can feel off, even when nothing sounds wrong. And that feeling, that's not you being dramatic. That's actually you being aware. But let's ground this. Actions, because actions remove the confusion, right? Not the intentions, not potential, not words, patterns. If someone says they value you, but doesn't show up, that's information. If someone says they care, but disappears when it matters, that's information. And this is where honesty comes in, because sometimes we don't ignore what we see because we don't understand it. We ignore it because we don't want to accept it. So instead, we hold on to the words and we explain away the actions. Now, let's talk about you, because this part matters just as much. How does it feel in your body? Not the story, not the explanation, but the feeling. Do you feel calm? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel safe? Or do you feel like you're constantly trying to figure it out? Because your emotions are giving you data, but they're not always giving you the full truth. And this is where we separate. We are going to separate our emotional reaction versus our emotional awareness. Your reaction might say, they don't care, they're pulling away, or I'm not enough. But awareness pauses and asks, wait a minute, what is actually happening here? And this is where it all comes together, because none of this happens in isolation. The language, the tone, the actions, the emotional response, they stack. And over time, that stack becomes a pattern, and that pattern becomes a belief, and that belief becomes the lens that we start viewing everything through. So now we're not just reacting to the moment, we're reacting to everything that has ever felt like that moment. And that's why triggers feel so intense, because it's not just now, it's everything that came before it. But I want to slow this down clearly. An experience happens, we interpret it, and that interpretation creates an emotion, and that emotion drives your reaction, and the reaction reinforces a belief, and a belief, it shapes our reality. So if we're not aware of this loop, we will keep recreating these same experiences with different people, different situations, thinking it's them, when it's actually the lens we haven't decided to shift yet. So what do? We pause, not after everything falls apart, but in the moment we feel the shift, the moment when your chest tightens, your thoughts start to race, and our emotions begin to rise. That's our entry point. And in that moment, we ask, what was actually said? How was it said? What action supports or contradicts this? What am I feeling right now? And is this about now or something from before? That is emotional intelligence. This is self-leadership. And this is how we stop reacting and start responding. And for me, this did not come naturally. There was a time in my life where my emotions led everything. I reacted fast, I felt deeply, and I didn't know how to separate what was actually happening from what I felt was happening. So I created stories, and those stories felt real, but they weren't always accurate. And once I learned to pause, to check the language, to check the tone, check the actions, and my own emotional response, I started to see clearly, not perfectly, but intentionally. So if this resonates with you, I want you to start practicing this, not perfectly, just intentionally, because the goal isn't to silence our emotions. It's to understand them, to sit with them long enough for our awareness to catch up. And when it does, everything begins to shift. And if you're ready to go deeper into this work, if you're ready to slow down and meet yourself honestly, and to start understanding your patterns, I want to personally invite you to come sit with us inside the Mirror at Dusk experience. This is where we do this work together, not perfectly, no rushing, no pressure, just awareness, real conversations, and real transformation. Until next time, pause, check the pattern, and pivot back to peace.
So I pivot back to peace.